It's somewhat of a surprise. She did not mention Donald Trump's name at all in a speech that she just finished giving, but it came up in the question and answer session at a think tank, the Hudson Institute, which she now is leading here. She was asked, and near the end of that Q&A, who would she vote for? Her speech was very critical of Joe Biden and his policies. Again, she did not mention Donald Trump by name until she was asked who her ballot would be for.
As a voter, I put my priorities on a president who's going to have the backs of our allies and hold our enemies to account, who would secure the border, no more excuses, a president who would support capitalism and freedom, a president who understands we need less debt, not more debt. Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump.
So she also went on to say, really picking up where she left off on March 6th, her concession speech. She said it is the burden of Donald Trump to reach out to her supporters, to win them over. So, Jake, she went on to say this: having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and to continue to support me and not be automatically assume that they will support him. So is this a surprise? No. She's the last standing Republican rival who had withheld her endorsement. The last major candidate, Chris Christie, has as well. But look, she's a Republican. She's a two-term former Republican governor. She served in the UN, of course, as his ambassador. So this is not a surprise. The question is, what happens to her supporters? But talking to her advisors, she doesn't own these supporters. She doesn't own these voters. And hundreds of millions of them have been cast since she dropped out of the race. So again, she said that she hopes he reaches out to them. The bigger question, could she still be considered to be his running mate? Ralph Norman, the Republican member of Congress from South Carolina, said just yesterday here on CNN, he's talked to the former president. He wishes he would reach out to her for running mate. He has said that he is not going to put her on the short list. We shall see.
So also Chris Sununu, the former governor of New Hampshire, who was a Nikki Haley supporter and now has endorsed Trump, said that he wished that Trump would bring Haley on the ticket. Stick with me, Jeff. I want to bring in Ashley Etienne, who worked for Vice President Harris, and Brian Lanza, who worked for the Trump-Pence campaign. Brian, how significant a moment do you think this is?
Listen, first of all, thank you for having me. I think it's another moment of the party uniting behind Trump. First, you had Bill Barr announce here on CNN that he was supporting Trump. I think that shocked a lot of people. And you see more and more of what was viewed as the resistance sort of lighting up, supporting Trump, and that's where the party's going. They're going unified into November. And I push back a little bit on what Nikki Haley said, that Trump needs to appeal to her supporters. He's clearly appealing to supporters because he's consolidated the Republican vote already. That's not on accident. That's on a target. That's on a targeted pitch that the campaign is focused on. He's hitting those voters without necessarily addressing the Nikki Haley situation. Now they can address it and sort of reinforce, we've been talking to you, now Nikki Haley's on board. Let's unify the rest of the party and let's get ready for November.
I mean, I just think this really puts on full display for the American people how spineless the Republican Party is today, how they've completely rolled over and are now behind and backing Donald Trump, when all of these, from Sununu to Nikki Haley, have had great, massive objections about Donald Trump, from the $8 trillion he's added to the debt, to the chaos, as she would describe it, that he perpetuated as president, from domestic policy to foreign policy. Now, all of a sudden, we just delete on that. We hit delete on that. She expects the American people to forget that she actually said that. I think that her voters aren't to your point earlier, those aren't her voters. I think those voters are in pure objection to where the Republican Party is today. They're disgusted by Donald Trump. They wanted an alternative. She represented that alternative. Now that she's out of it, I think those folks don't go back to the Republican Party.
So just Alyssa Farah Griffin, Trump's former communications director, who is no longer a fan of Donald Trump, said in response to Nikki Haley saying she's going to vote for Trump, quote, "Disappointing but not surprising. I lost all faith in politicians a long time ago. Trump is a threat to democracy and has no business being near the White House." So there are some
within the Republican Party that have lost faith in their own leaders.
Right, but you were talking about what Nikki Haley said about Trump during the campaign. Jeff, I want to play some of what she said in the weeks before she dropped out of the race in March.
I feel no need to kiss the ring. I have no fear of Trump's retribution. I'm not looking for anything from him. My own political future is of zero concern.
So Haley could have made this announcement at any time since she dropped out of the race. And certainly, and Brian, I want you to weigh in on this in a second after Jeff, certainly there are a lot of people out there still voting for Haley in these primaries. I mean, knowing that it's futile, but I think she got like almost 20% of the vote in Indiana, double digits in Pennsylvania, 6% last night in Kentucky. Not a lot, but still she's not even running. Why now? Why make this announcement now?
Look, one of the reasons I'm told is because the primaries are nearing their end, and she, of course, is thinking about her future. I'm told it's not decided yet. She has no idea if she will run again in 2028. That's a long time down the road, but she is a Republican. So there was a donor meeting, which some of her top donors just last week in South Carolina, and at that meeting, I'm told that it came up. I mean, there is some concern about her branding. She's not a Joe Biden moderate. She is a conservative Republican.
Right.
She just believes the party should not be of the MAGA variety. So the reason she's doing it now, because she was asked the question directly, she went there and she wanted to take the air out of the suspense a little bit. The bigger question is, what does she do now? Does she campaign on behalf of Donald Trump? Does he ask her? Does he reach out to her? Those are very unknown at this hour.
So, and Brian, so I give you one homework assignment a second ago. So here's the second one. Is there a difference between her saying I endorse Donald Trump and her saying I'm voting for Donald Trump and here's why?
No, I don't think it's a difference to her voters. And I certainly don't think it's a difference to the campaign. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, she says she's going to be punching her ticket for Donald Trump. That's what everybody wants to hear in the Republican Party, and that's what they're going to be hearing. I do think she'll likely campaign. I mean, the reality is she's going to be a very popular person among the circuit, especially the suburban women, which the campaign recognizes they have challenges. I don't think she's going to be VP or even a cabinet position, but she's a very strong and powerful surrogate for the campaign, and I think she'll deliver on that.
Yeah.
Go.
No, I mean, I think the concern is that she's prioritized her own political future over the future of the country. Whatever happened to constitutional Republicans, the ones who believe in those foundational documents, the ones that, you know, the documents that Donald Trump says he's going to do away with on day one, that he's going to lead like a dictator. And she knows that. She was in those rooms. She saw it. And she brought that to the American people and said, this guy does not deserve to be in the White House. Why all of a sudden that changes and she's not going to get anything out of the deal is just a disgrace, and I think a slap into the face of the American people.
Brian, how do you explain all the thousands of people that are still voting for Nikki Haley in these primaries, Republican voters?
You know, it's probably still a little bit of a protest vote what you see, but let's remember this happened in 2016. You had a phenomenon of a lot of Republican in the primary voters still not voting for Trump. But what did we learn? We learned in November that they voted for Trump. So it's a great storyline that we can talk about and sort of create this upheaval. But at the end of the day, we know they fall in line because we look at historical patterns, and they fell in line in 2016.
One thing I learned today, the Biden campaign is actually studying those voters, particularly in Indiana, where more than 21%, 1 in 5 Republicans voted for her. They're trying to see, a lot are suburban women, but not all of them. So we will see now that Haley has said who she's supporting, if that changes at all, sort of, the calculus for some of her voters. But again, she has said she doesn't own these voters. So there was a mix. Some were Democrats in other states, but even in closed primary states, there were still a lot of Republicans voting for her. It was definitely a protest vote. We'll see if the Republicans for Biden organization, which is ramping up, will get any other people on it or not. She will not be one of them.
Ashley, here's something else Nikki Haley said before she dropped out of the race earlier this year.
At some point, maybe we should say the reason that America keeps losing is because of Donald Trump.
She's certainly given the Biden campaign a lot of clips that they can use in their ads. I don't know how effective they'll be, though, with her out there saying, here's all the reasons why Donald Trump is better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern for her, she's probably lost, I can bet, all credibility with those voters that are voting for her now, those protest voters. So I'm not so sure what effect she'll have on the campaign trail going forward. And I'm not so sure this endorsement really moves any of that 20% in any of those states. I mean, you're absolutely right. She's given a lot of fodder to the Biden campaign, but also I think more than anything else, it really should wake up the Republican Party. They should be asking themselves, how do we reclaim this party? How do we get to this in this position that we're in now, where we're going to the head of the party, who's lost 3 consecutive cycles, right, dating back to 2018, excuse me. How is this person the head of the party? One who's antithetical to everything we stand for and represent as a party that they used to. More importantly, if you don't mind me adding, you have, Senator Romney, who says and this is the scariest thing if you ask me, a growing faction within the Republican Party that no longer believes in the Constitution and that supports people like Putin. That is alarming, and it should be to Nikki Haley. And the fact that she's compromised her principles to now support Trump is despicable.